Welcome to this short introduction to the scenarios for Europe in the year 2048, developed by the Imajine project. Imajine is a Horizon-funded research programme comprising 16 participating institutions across 13 countries, led by Aberystwyth University in Wales. Across a series of activities including empirical research, case studies, conceptual and policy work, and strategic foresight, the Imajine team worked to formulate new policy mechanisms which enable European, national and regional government agencies to more effectively address territorial inequalities. Imajine explores two key issues. The first is territorial inequality. Do EU citizens have equal rights and opportunities regardless of wherever they live? The second is spatial justice. Are different places treated fairly? Is your ability to realise your rights compromised by where you live? The scenarios developed by Imajine draw on the Oxford scenario planning approach. The scenarios are not expectations, predictions, or articulations of desired or feared states. They are plausible assessments of the future context, developed for a specific purpose, that contrast with the way the future context is currently being framed. Imajine's 4 scenarios are based on 2 key factors. The first is the degree of solidarity versus autonomy in European policymaking, whether Europe makes policy as one consistent bloc or a series of smaller entities. The second is whether the overall goal of European society is economic prosperity, understood in terms of traditional metrics like GDP, or well-being, considered in terms of emerging and alternative measures. These economic questions have risen to the forefront during the COVID-19 pandemic. An example of alternative well-being metrics might include the proposals in the World Health Organization's March 2022 policy brief, Valuing Health for All. The first scenario is Silver Citadel, characterized by a high degree of solidarity in policymaking and a focus on economic prosperity as the overall goal of European society. In this scenario, by 2048, the EU achieves prosperity and economic equity across its regions. The Union has consolidated decision-making power over its member states. Material inequalities recede as regions benefit from a new state capitalism that includes reindustrialization and redistributive welfare. In this scenario, spatial justice means an equitable distribution of wealth between regions, calculated with the assistance of artificial intelligence. Spatial injustice occurs when individuals are excluded from centralized decision-making. The second scenario, Green Guardian, also exhibits a high degree of solidarity in policy-making, but there is a greater focus on well-being as the overall goal of European society, with new measures around sustainability and health arising to reflect this. By 2048, in Green Guardian, Europeans feel remorse for the environmental costs of their old lifestyle. Ideals of sustainability, well-being, and civic responsibility dominate. The EU consolidates its powers to monitor and regulate resilience and sustainability on behalf of a new world order focused on surviving climate change and other crises. Spatial justice means regions helping each other adapt to change. Territorial inequalities remain, but the poles of the urban-rural divide have flipped. Now metropolitan areas decline, while once marginalized rural areas flourish. The Silicon Scaffold scenario exhibits a high degree of autonomy in policymaking across the different regions of Europe, but the overall focus is on economic prosperity as the goal of European society. In this scenario, in 2048, digital citizenship is now a set of online rights and responsibilities independent of geographical location. The EU consists of digital relationships in a world shaped by transnational corporations. City-states and regions with corporate affiliations develop their own authority. The EU's limited strength resides in its ability to regulate the infrastructure on which this virtual world runs, brokering digital access. Its job is to keep the lights on and data running quickly and smoothly through its territories. Spatial justice means the right of regions to hold on to wealth they have generated. Finally, Patchwork Rainbow sees a high degree of autonomy in policymaking across Europe, and the overall goal of European society is well-being, understood in terms of emerging and alternative measures. In this scenario in 2048, different regions have embraced wildly varied ideas of identity, social value, and human well-being. The European Union strives to mediate internal conflict and provide some unity in external relations. It offers a shared informational framework, offering a minimum of trusted information that its diverging members can accept. It holds together because its constituent parts recognise that they are too small to individually bargain with the world's new superpowers. Spatial justice in this scenario has become a cultural issue, communities asserting the right to define their own values. Imajine's 4 scenarios for Europe in the year 2048 provide a prism through which to view the decisions we must take and the issues we face when it comes to territorial inequality and spatial justice today. We can use these 4 futures to reflect on the present day, to identify signals of emerging change in the world around us, and to consider how our choices would appear with the benefit of hindsight from the perspective of each scenario. What would it mean for your institution, your region, your community, or the issue you work on if decision-making on regional inequality was centralised, heavily augmented by machine intelligence, and strongly focused on economic parity, as it is in Silver Citadel? What if decision-making was still highly centralised, but in the service of a new, green, post-capitalist agenda, as in Green Guardian? In futures characterised by more diversity and autonomy between regions, what would it mean for the bulk of social and economic life to migrate to the corporate clouds, as in Silicon Scaffold? What would it mean if the greater diversity and autonomy took the form of a strong divergence between regions in terms of their social and cultural values, as in the world of Patchwork Rainbow? If you're interested in learning more about Imajine, the full scenarios, including responses from experts across a range of sectors, are available online. Do get in touch and join us to explore these questions of spatial justice, now and in times to come.